Wen is a brand that's known for quality tools at an affordable price, and I've become quite a fan. I've purchased a biscuit joiner, track saw clamps, and many other accessories. And with all these tools, I've been pleasantly surprised. However, I just purchased 4 new Wen tools, and one's a complete piece of crap, so stick around to find out which one. Now, as I said in the intro, I bought 4 new Wen tools, and one of these is a piece of junk, but we'll get to that later in the video. We first need to talk about Wen tools in general. Now, do you know what Wen means? Have you ever Googled it? Well, let's do that right now. Wen, an abnormal growth or cyst protruding from a surface, especially of the skin. Pronounced
Wen.
Anybody else think these Chinese companies could benefit from doing a little bit of research before naming their company? Now, rumor on the street is they wanted to go with Acme Tools, but it was too close to Acme Tools. But we'll give them the benefit of the doubt as their primary language probably isn't English, but I do have 4 suggestions of better names for this brand. So let's not waste any more time and get into our 4 tools today and our 4 better names for this brand. My first new brand name suggestion gets a little bit of help from a high quality tool brand, and that is Snap-on. I suggest that Wen renames themselves to Strap-on. A little less gross and a lot more intriguing. Let's get into our first tool. So our first tool of the day is the Wen 2-inch pocket edge ruler. Let's take a closer look. Now, all the tools we're taking a look at today are fairly inexpensive, including this Wen pocket edge ruler. In fact, I got all 4 of these tools for less than $100. And this little ruler was one of the more inexpensive ones, coming in at just over $12. So let's get into the box and see what it looks like. As you can see, this little ruler's got a really simple L-shaped design. But it's this small design that really intrigued me so much. If we take a closer look at the square, you can see it's made from CNC machine anodized aluminum. And you probably noticed this thing is only a little bit over 2 inches long and kind of resembles Swiss cheese. And that's because it's got scribe holes at every 32nd of an inch, going from 0 all the way up to 2 and 3/32. You'll also notice with its L-shaped design, it gives it a large lip to give full support when scribing your lines, and it comes in at just about 1.5 inches long, which is perfect for either thinner stock or thicker wood like a 2x4. It's also very easy to read. With its black background and contrasting white writing, you can be assured that you're marking exactly where you want. And one of my favorite features of this ruler is its chamfered edge design. This chamfered edge allows you to avoid parallax, making your markings that much more accurate. And last but not least, with its small design, it truly is a pocket ruler, able to fit in the pocket of any apron. Well, that's all fine and dandy, but before we give this tool a green light, let's do a couple of tests to make sure that this ruler is actually square and the scribe holes are accurate. First, let's test for square, marking out on one side, sliding the ruler over, and making a marking on the other side. And if we take a closer look, that's parallel enough for my work. Next, I'll scribe out a line at every one of those scribe holes. And if we look at all those lines, you can see they're evenly spaced across the length of the ruler. Well, I'm happy to say that this little ruler passes the test and is something that I'll be using on a regular basis. So I guess this little guy isn't the piece of junk that I was referring to in the beginning of the video. But we've got more work to do. Not only do we have 3 more tools to take a look at, but we also need to come up with some new names for this Wen brand. My next new name suggestion for Wen is a name for the 21st century. We've all heard of the brand Craftsman, which is completely unwoke. We've got to go with Craftsperson. We all know there's some lady woodworkers out there, and frankly, they're better than us, so I suggest we start a boycott against Craftsman. I do love the RoboGrip though. Let's boycott everything but RoboGrip. Let's check out our next Craftsperson tool. This is the Craftsperson 12-inch combination square. Let's check it out. This is the most affordable tool of the day, coming in at just over $11. So let's get this bad boy out of the box and see what it's all about. If we take a quick look at it, it looks like any other combination square, but in my opinion, it's got a lot more going for it. First off, you'll notice it's got a black ruler, and frankly, I'm not sure I'll ever go back.
You go black, you're gonna need a wheelchair.
No, it's once you go black, you don't go back.
Once again, it's this black background with white writing that makes this a breeze to read. And this ruler is an aluminum ruler and it's laser engraved on both sides. Let's take it out and take a closer look. To get a better feel for this ruler, we need to look at both sides. If we look at the first side, you'll notice it's got imperial on one side at every 1/16 of an inch and metric on the other. If we flip it around, you'll notice it once again has metric on one side and imperial on the other at every 32nd of an inch. Now let's take this ruler, slide it back into the base, and take a look at what's going on over there. One of the first things that you'll notice is the spring-loaded brass knob at the base. This spring-loaded bolt allows the ruler to be easily adjustable and makes it much more easy to slide in the ruler. You'll also notice a neon green bubble level on the frame of the tool to allow you to check for level. Next to that level, you'll also find a small brass knob. Let's see what that's all about. If we unscrew that knob, you'll find a pretty cool little feature, and that is a small scribe to allow you to mark out measurements when you don't have a pencil around. And lastly, just like all combination squares, this square has a 90 and 45-degree dimensional head. So a pretty impressive combination square for a very affordable price. But before we give this a green light, we need to do a couple of tests. So first and foremost, we obviously need to test this for square. So I'm going to extend the ruler out and grab a piece of plywood. So obviously I'm going to scribe a line on one side of the square, flip the square over, and scribe a secondary line. And if we take a look at the two lines, you can see they're perfectly parallel. Now let's slide that ruler to the other side and test for 45. And here I'm just going to mark out a 45-degree line and take a delve square and strike another line and see how the two compare. And once again, two perfectly parallel lines at 45 degrees. So we're batting 100% so far with two tools I would totally recommend, and we haven't encountered that piece of crap yet, so I wonder which tool it will be, as we only have two more left to take a look at. But I assure you, one of the last two tools is a piece of crap, so stick around to the end to find out which one it is. And it's about time to come up with another name suggestion for this terribly named brand, Wem. But before we do that, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, leave a like, leave a comment, as it really does help out this small woodworking channel. Also, if you enjoy fun woodworking accessories like this nailer shirt, check out my website, www.flynndogwoodwork.com. Lastly, if any of the tools we take a look at today interest you, I'll leave a link in the description below so that you can go check them out for yourself, except for the last one we take a look at. As I've got a better option for you, and I've also got a better option for a name for Wen. Now, I like The Office just as much as the next guy, but why in the hell would you name a tool brand off of one of its most boring characters? I've got a much better suggestion for the brand Wen, and that is Dwight.
The eyes are the groin of the head.
Dwight Tools, that's got a nice ring to it. Let's check out our next tool. This next tool is the Dwight Tools Multifunction Thread Pitch Gauge. Let's check it out. So inside this envelope, made out of paper, is one of the most interesting tools I think I've ever seen. And it's also extremely cheap, coming in at just over $12. Let's get it out of the envelope and take a closer look. Inside the envelope, you'll find, well, another envelope, or a carrying case. If we open up this envelope, you're going to find two very odd-looking tools. So these bad boys have a lot going on with them, but they really might save you a whole lot of trouble. The primary use of these tools is to figure out the threading and gauge of things like machine screws and bolts. So why are there two of these? Well, you probably guessed it, one of these are in Freedom units and the others are for our friends across the pond.
I wonder if king-size sheets are called presidential-sized in England.
Now these may look extremely complicated, but there's really not as much going on with them as you think. Part of what makes these tools look so complicated are the numerous holes, not only in the body of the tool, but all around the edges. But don't be intimidated, these are just holes to determine the gauge of your screws or bolts. By placing a bolt or a screw into those holes, you can determine the exact gauge of that item. And here I've got a number 12 24 inch and a quarter machine screw. So let's take this screw and I'll show you exactly how it works. First off, I'll place it into a hole until I find the appropriate gauge. And obviously we knew that this was a number 12, but if we didn't, we'd know now. But if you remember, this is a 12-24, so what does that mean? Well, the 24 refers to the threading of the screw, and if we take a look at the gauge, you'll notice that there's a lot of teeth on the sides. So if this screw is indeed labeled correctly, we should expect it to fit right into that 24 teeth per inch slot. And like a glove, that screw fits right into that slot. So the labeling is indeed correct, but if we didn't know the size of this screw, we would now know. But hold on, there was one more number on that screw, and that was 1 1/4 inches. Well, we can even determine the length with this gauge. By placing the screw on end and putting the gauge right next to that screw, you can see it comes in at right at 1.25 inches, giving you all the dimensions you need to go to the hardware store and get that right size item. But let's talk a little bit more about this item, as it's also got some other features going on as well. First off, once again, this item's got that black background with white writing that makes it extremely easy to read. And all of these markings are laser etched on both sides of the tool. And there's even a cheat sheet embedded into the back of the tool. As you can see, there's tap drill recommendations not only for imperial, but also metric. You'll also notice that there's 2 incorporated protractors included with this tool. A standard protractor on the end of one of the gauges and another one on the opposite end of both gauges, showing all the major angles. And lastly, there's a removable taper gauge on both items so that you can determine your tapers. And once you're done, you can place everything back into the sleeve until you're ready to figure out what the dimensions are for that random screw in your shop. Well, once again, a nice little item made by Dwight Tools to save you a lot of headaches down the road. So we've hit 3 winners so far today, but I did mention we have a piece of crap. Surely it's not the most expensive thing I bought today, is it? Unfortunately, yes. Yes, it is. But before we take a look at our last item, we've got one more thing left to do, and that's to come up with another name alternative for Wen. Now, this last name suggestion is also taken from another popular brand, a brand that I honestly take offense to, and that is Husky, as this was the only type of jeans I could fit into when I was a kid. But instead of calling this tool Husky, let's go with Slim. Slim Jim, another office reference. And who doesn't like shelf-stable meat?
Step into a Slim Jim.
Speak, my brother!
Ooh, yeah!
So let's dive into this Slim Jim piece of crap. So this is the Slim Jim portable pocket hole jig. Let's take a closer look. Now, I don't take ripping on tools lightly, and I've been very pleased with every Wen tool I've got, but this one has some issues, 6 to be exact. Now, maybe I got a bad apple or a lemon, but I think it's just as important to show you the failures of tools as it is to show you the tools that work. So let's take a look at what comes with this tool and why I don't like it. Now, at first glance, when I took this out of the box, I thought it was going to be an absolute game changer. It comes packed with accessories, including plugs, as well as 4 different sizes of pocket hole screws. Now, accessories are great, but why did I think this tool was a game changer? To understand that, we need to take a closer look at the tool. And just as a heads up, we're going to look at the positive things about this tool before we tear it all down. First off, I really like the clamp on this jig. It's got a very smooth operation and an oversized clamp face. It also has hardened steel drill guides as well as an anodized aluminum body. Now, although I said this is the most expensive thing we're taking a look at today, it's still fairly cheap for a pocket hole jig, coming in at just over $54. Now, one of the biggest differences between this pocket hole jig and many others are the 2 rows of drill guides. This unique design eliminates the need to raise and lower those drill guides depending on the thickness of your stock. Instead, you'll use the 2 lower drill guides for 1.25 and 1.5 stock, and the 2 higher guides for 1/2 inch, 3/4, and 1 inch stock. And for 1/2 inch stock, you'll simply screw in 2 elevation screws to raise the stock so that the drill hits the appropriate spot. This jig also has a very unique design for the adjustability of those drill guides. The jig has a rail that the drill guides rest in, and the jig can be adjusted to any width you want. And once you have your width set, you simply lock it into place with the knob on the front. The jig also comes with a secondary bracket that you can attach those drill guides to so that you can get into those small spaces. If we flip the jig upside down, you'll also notice there's a nice cheat sheet on the bottom, letting you know for each board thickness what bushing hole you should be using and the type of screw. Lastly, this is a mountable jig with its pre-drill and countersink holes in the frame of the tool. But hold up, I thought you said this thing was crap. Well, it is. Let's talk about some of its issues. First and foremost, let's talk about the machining on this tool. The machining with this tool makes it completely unusable. First off, one of my drill guides isn't even able to sit completely flush like the other 3. Secondly, the elevation screws were very difficult to put in, and I felt like I was stripping them the entire time I was screwing them in. And remember that L base for getting into tight spots? Well, this has machining issues as well. As you can see, the pre-drill holes in the L bracket don't line up with the screw holes in the tool. Since we're talking about those screws, let's talk about the included hex key. It's not the right size for any of the hex screws. Now, I was able to make it work with one of my own, but come on. Now that's enough to make me throw this jig away almost immediately, but there's also 3 major design fails in my opinion. First up is dust collection. She ain't got it. Next up, if you're like me, you typically don't mount these to anything, but instead clamp them to your workbench. But there's absolutely no clampable surface on the front of this jig. Lastly, what about help in setting up the collar on your drill bit? Now, almost all pocket hole jigs have something to help you with this, but this jig's got nothing. Plus, even if it did have something, you wouldn't be able to tighten that collar with the included hex key. And all of these issues make this Wen pocket hole jig an absolute no-go in my opinion. Well, it was bound to happen sooner or later. I don't think there's any tool brand where I've had a 100% success rate. And I'd much rather have it happen to me than some other beginning woodworker out there thinking that they're the problem. Well, thanks so much for joining me today, as I really appreciate it. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button, leave a like, leave a comment, and share this video, as it really helps out this small woodworking channel. Also, if you're interested in other tool reviews, check out the links at the end of this video to see more videos. Lastly, if you like fun woodworking accessories like all the shirts that I wear in my videos, check out FlynnDoggWoodwork.com. Until next time, take care as always. What did one huge zit say to the other? What up, sister? No. How about this one? Did you hear about the festering boil in jail? Yeah, he's in there for assisted murder. No? All right, last chance. You ever hear about the helpful cyst? It's called an assist. You guys got no sense of humor.